Well, welcome everybody to yet another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck, and that means Smart Talk Radio is in your future, and this segment is absolutely no exception. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We're going to be talking to James Cusamano. He is an extraordinary American entrepreneur with numerous careers, not the least of which as the lead singer for the Royal Teens, of which, who are the Royal Teens? Let me dial you back to an era long ago, the tune Short Shorts and others. He then went on to receive a PhD in physical chemistry and became a fellow of Churchill College at Cambridge University, attended Rutgers University, pursued business studies at Harvard and Stanford, now lives in the Czech Republic. And with that as a rough background and a poor introduction, but heartfelt indeed, James, I will just call you Jim for the next 30 minutes. How are you, my friend?
That sounds great. It's really, really wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, Lewis, for inviting me.
You bet. Again, we'll talk about it all here. We also want to talk about an extraordinary new work you have out called Balance, the Business Life Connection, and none better than you to speak about this. Interesting that to go from the lead singer of, at the time, the early rock and roll era, in the northeast part of the country, but a national hit, and then suddenly you find yourself in the world of corporate America. That you've been asked about that a lot, though. When you sit back now and think of yourself, when someone says, "Who are you?" What's your answer?
That's a good question. Who's the real you?
Yeah.
Well, the way I look at it is the following. I think when you're a youngster, somewhere between the ages of 5 and 15, things happen that you discover you're very good at. You may be good mechanically, you may be an artist, you may be good with numbers, whatever it may be. And those are indicators of where you can go with your life to find your life purpose. And we don't think about that when we're young like that, but if you think back, that's really the first indicator. And two things happened to me that caused me to move in the directions that I did in these, what I call my 5 lives. I'm in my 5th life right now. Hopefully I'm like a cat and have 9. But the first thing that happened to me was my father bought me a chemistry set because he wanted me to be a medical doctor. Okay. I had no interest in being a medical doctor.
Right.
But after I went through the shenanigans at Boys Zoo, making fireworks, rockets, and stink bombs and that sort of thing, right, I checked a book out of the library called 1001 Recipes. And you could make cosmetics and inks and adhesives out of things that at that time, in the 50s and early 60s, you could buy in a hardware store or a local pharmacy. Today you couldn't do that. But I started making some of these things, cosmetics and inks and adhesive, and selling them in the neighborhood. And what happened is it touched my soul very deeply because I was, not only did the money mean something to me, because I'm the oldest of 10 children. My father was a postman, so by all metrics, we were poor growing up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And so this extra money was nice, but the thing that touched me more than the money was the fact that somebody was willing to pay for this technology that I developed in my grandmother's cellar, where we were living in a home with my grandparents.
Right.
And that was the first leg of a 3-legged stool that told me I want to be a scientist. And I never changed. The other one, the other leg, which is entertainment, is that I wanted to get an inside job, and I didn't like delivering newspapers in New Jersey. It was very cold. And so my mother suggested that I take piano lessons because she heard me playing on an old rickety piano and said, you're pretty good at that. You play songs by ear. So my father got a friend of his who was a band leader to, for free, teach me how to play piano. So over 3 years, I learned to play piano, and I started my own band. I started playing high school proms, started writing songs. Next thing you know, I'm in Elizabeth, New Jersey, right across the river, 14 miles from Manhattan. I started going over there and selling my songs because I didn't know how to copyright them. Right. And I would sell them to singing groups, $1, $2, $5. Once I think I even got $10. A lot of money in the 50s.
Right.
And so that excited me, that the entertainment. I liked getting in front of an audience. I liked the singing and all of that. And then finally was discovered by Leo Rogers, who had several groups, one of them the Royal Teens, and he asked me to join the group as the lead singer. So, here I have basically the three legs of my life purpose: technology, entertainment, and business. And they followed me through my life and everything I've done. And I think the key that I have found is that you have to find your passion, what really turns you on inside. And if you do that, and then balance it between how you spend your time in your personal life and your professional life, you can find long-term fulfillment. So that's really what I have found, and that's what the book's about.
Right. And again, we don't have enough time to explore every detail, but you were offered the opportunity, pretty much a shoe-in, so to speak, to become a member of the Four Seasons,
Right.
as a member of the Royal Teens, and we won't go into all the detail. But it was a difficult decision for you, but you made the decision, and you told Frankie Valli, nope, I'm going to go work for Exxon, or something to that effect.
Yeah,
that must have been
was Frankie Fame. Frankie Fame was a guy who booked our group.
Okay.
And he called me from Las Vegas, and they were just losing the Four Seasons were just losing their bass player, and he said, I talked to Bob Gaudio, and I told him that you would be great to replace him, and he said, boy, that's super. Let's get him out here. And I took a very tough weekend thinking about that. I was in my last year of graduate school, just about to get my doctorate 2 months later, and I said, I'd love to do it, but I can't, Frankie. Frankie Fame thought I was nuts because I was giving up basically what it probably would have been about $75,000 a year to start, plus
Right.
then royalties and anything you get from recording. But just to calibrate you, my first job with Exxon in 1967, which was shortly after this, was $15,000 a year.
Right.
So, $75,000 was a lot of money. So, but, I never regretted it because I really, really wanted to follow science and technology, and entertainment was important to me, but it was second place compared to science, technology, and business.
Right, and it sounds to me like the music talent was something, that's neat that I have it, but I don't wake up every day, I don't wake up in the middle of the night with a song in my head I got to go compose.
Yeah, that's correct. I must say, though, all of us have egos, and they're sometimes very hard to control. And when you're a singer with a group, and you get up in front of an audience of 1,000 people, and you get a round of applause, or better yet, a standing ovation, it's really hard to forget that and give it up because it's instantaneous gratification. But if you have something deeper inside of you that's burning, like I always wanted to use technology to make the world better. I wanted to do something that would change the world. Cleaner technology, cheaper technology, whatever the case may be. And that flame burns so much brighter than getting up in front of an audience that I was willing to give that up.
Again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis, here from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. That means Smart Talk Radio, and we are in the midst of that indeed, talking to James Cusamano. He has done a number of things in his career, not the least of which he also, besides being a scientist, besides being a singer and a band member, he's also the owner of the glorious Chateau Miceli in the Czech Republic, and we'll talk about that as well. We're talking also about his new work called Balance, the Business Life Connection, from a guy that would be considered an extrovert, an introvert, a scientist, an analytical, and an outgoing, and an expressive, all rolled into one. It must make you feel pretty complete.
Well, I consider myself very fortunate to have been able to live these lives, and the first chapter of my book says it's entitled "On the Shoulders of Giants." It's because I've met some very, very significant people in my life, and they helped me. And when I came to crossroads, they helped me choose the right way. And I mention a lot of those people, and I think all of us meet these people at various crossroads. Sometimes you don't know who they are because you're not listening to understand. You can't just listen to hear. You got to listen to understand. And when you meet these people, sometimes it's so powerful, and it gives you a direction to go. And all five of those jobs, or let's say all five of those professions that I have, were really based on giants directing me in the right way, in the right journey.
One of the things that is a core of this work, and it is core of your philosophy, is a concept you refer to as 6 spheres or values. Would you touch on those briefly and give us an overview?
Sure, and that's an excellent question because, a lot of people, and maybe some of the people listening right now, say, balance. I've heard about that, but it's impossible to have balance between your personal and professional life. I think these are people who have not yet understood the important capability of what I call a values-based life plan. And so when I talk about balance, first of all, balance is it's an optimal effort in both your personal and your professional life, and to get a desirable return, whether it's financial, psychological, emotional, whatever it may be. But it cannot be done without what I call a values-based life plan. Now, what is that? And I have a whole chapter on that in the book, and there are 6 pieces to this. One is your profession, the second is your finance, the third is your relationships, both family and friends. The fourth is spiritual. It could be religious, but it could be anything that's sacred to you. The fourth is health, and the fifth is health, and the sixth is knowledge. And what is it that you want to learn in this world? But it all needs to be time managed properly, and in a way that's easy to do, that you don't have to go bananas every day trying to figure out what you're going to do. And the way you do that is you create what I call a 3-year rolling plan. And the first time you do it, it takes a lot of time. But after that, every year when you upgrade it or updo it, it's nothing. It's not really much problem at all. I've been doing it for 40 years. And when you live by a values-based life plan, you understand then what balance is, and that you can do effective things in both your personal and your professional life. Because otherwise, what happens is that if you have no plan whatsoever, the personal life usually suffers. Usually it's the family or it's even yourself at the expense of your profession, because we've been programmed to realize or to think that the way to succeed in this world, the way to be recognized, and it really it feeds the ego, is to make money, to get material things, and to have the power and success of creating a great business. So what I'm saying is that doesn't have to be that way. You can still build a great company, you can still have a great family, and still have time for yourself, but it has to be time managed on a values-based life plan. Otherwise, it'll never work, and you join the ranks of all people that say, balance, that's impossible.
You do not live in the States anymore. That's obviously a conscious choice. I'm curious as to whether that specific choice of to live abroad, was that part of the plan, or is that just where circumstances took you?
It's coming to a fork in the road. I had to make a decision. I made the right one, fortunately. To be frank, I was imported by a lovely lady.
Okay. And is that one of the spheres? Is the emotional balance?
It's relationships.
Yeah.
I had gone from rock and roll to Exxon to Silicon Valley building companies, and then I helped my prior wife, who's deceased, make a movie, because she was a screenplay writer, and we don't have the time to get into the details, but it's in the book. She passed away from breast cancer right after making the movie. So I was living in Southern California, in Ojai, California, near Santa Barbara, for a couple of years after that, and met a young lady by happenstance who came from Prague at my home. And I fell in love with her, came to Prague. She was an expert in heritage restoration of properties like castles. And she had bought this castle. It was a total wreck. And I said, let's work together and do something. And we came up with a strategy to create Chateau Mazzelli. But we're not just in the hotel, spa, and restaurant business. We use Chateau Mazzelli as a base or to a foundation to create other things that make the world better. And that's really part of our dream. So we're conducting leadership programs here on inspired leadership. My wife has created a whole line of natural cosmetics that we market and have absolutely no preservatives in them, and we market and we use them in our spa, and we've won lots of awards for those. And so this is kind of a mechanism to do that. So I'm here because I fell in love with a lady who lives here, and so now, if I may say so, I have I have three daughters, and this really gives you the picture. One is 46 years old, one is 36, and my youngest is 6.
Yeah, okay. I get it. Why not? You do the same thing with companies, same thing with ideas.
Right.
I'm curious as to and again, at the Chateau where you lead the various seminars, leaders from around the world, I assume everything from civic to business to cultural. And I'm curious as if the values that you're sharing with us, the 6 spheres, are those ever in conflict with values of those from other parts of the world?
Sometimes they are. Yes, sometimes they are, particularly when we're dealing with folks from Asia, because it's quite a different culture. But I've had some friends from the Asian continent, and we've had extensive discussions. And I think there's a meeting point between what I profess to be what I think are the values for building a good profession and a good personal life, and their own values. But they sometimes have to be, how shall I say, compromised and adapted for a particular area. Now, I do give, in the book, I give 8 ways to build an outstanding company, and those are culturally independent. It doesn't matter whether you're building a company in Cleveland or Beijing. Those things work everywhere. But on the personal end, you have to take into account the cultural effects, and sometimes those are quite different for us who in the Western world and in the Eastern world.
Are you at a point now in your career and in your life where what you have done so far, the accomplishments so far, not necessarily are enough, but that are fulfilling enough and time-consuming enough that you feel like not you've reached the end of the road, but you're at a spot where you'd like to stay, or do you still feel this yearning to create and do new?
No, I still feel the yearning to create and do new. But what really my thing right now, the thing that's most important to me now, Louis, is that I'm sorry, Warner. The thing that's really important to me right now is to take all the years I've put into creating these businesses and learning, and to share it with others, because I feel that there's something here that can be gained and garnered that could help others lead a more fulfilled life, and also to create companies that are more effective. So that's my thing that drives me. So I spend almost all of my time, whether it's at Chateau Mazzelli or writing or lecturing, on trying to make that happen right now.
What do you, is there a particular thing as you look at this new era, particularly, again, let's go to Silicon Valley and
Right.
look at the various leaders, mainly high tech. Is there a distinctive quality that they share, and is there a distinctive one that might be decidedly different than maybe the leaders of the old sort of manufacturing technology?
Well, yes, I think there. Having spent almost 30 years in Silicon Valley, I would say there is if you integrate over all of Silicon Valley. Now there are exceptions. There are some companies that are very different than others, but I think if you look at the Silicon Valley culture in general, it's much more open to new ways of doing things. It's much more open to creative jumps. It's much more open to quote, failing, because they don't look at failing. They look at failing, if one company fails, they look at it as a learning.
Right.
And that you can always bounce back and build another thing, because there's a lot of self-confidence in the people that run around Silicon Valley. And in fact, there's some people that believe that unless you fail 2 or 3 times, you're not really an entrepreneur.
Right.
But, so I think there is a difference, and the old-time way of doing things was a very classical, hierarchical, I'm the boss, you work for me, and I'll motivate you by, sometimes by fear, because if you don't do a good job, I'll fire you, or you won't get a bonus, or whatever the case may be. That may have worked starting with the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s up until, I don't know, around 1960, and then kind of a new way of motivating people, the carrot and stick mode came, and that's where people would say, if you accomplish your goals this year, you will get a tremendous bonus and maybe a car. And so it was kind of the carrot and stick. And if you don't, well, I don't know what will happen, but it was less hierarchical. But I think, to be very frank, the last 5 to 10 years, there's a tremendous emphasis of gravitating towards what I call inspired leadership. And inspired leaders are people that have a dream themselves, and they want to share that dream with others, and whether they're in a company or not. And in the corporate environment, these are people that see clearly something that can be done that makes a difference in the world, a positive difference in the world. It doesn't matter whether it's a beer company or a biotech. There's always a way to see a positive difference that you can take what you do and change the world for the better. And I think, Warner, that these folks, once you find somebody like that, inspire, and I have a whole section on inspired leadership. Once you find inspired leadership, you can really change the world. And by the way, you don't have to be a charismatic person to be an inspired leader.
Right.
What you have to do is deeply inside your soul believe in your dream. That's really what's necessary.
That's kind of one of the things we start to kind of wind down here a little bit. I wanted to explore in business or not, leader or not, this whole notion of following what you are as a person are genuinely passionate about. Let's speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Yes, I think it's absolutely incredibly important that you do that. And the way I look at it, I have something in the book that I call a fulfillment formula. We don't have the time to go into it in detail because I would show you how it works in various people's lives, but I do that in the book. And in the fulfillment formula, I maintain that every single one of us has something inside of us which I call your personal essence. And that personal essence, when you connect it with a need in the world, it makes it a little bit better, and it doesn't have to be profound, but it's something that makes the world better. It gives you a sense of purpose, and when you have that sense of purpose, it ignites passion, and the passion is very significant. It causes great physical and mental energy, and it's been shown psychologically by a number of studies that when that happens, your creativity, your right brain becomes much more effective, and you can solve very, very tough problems, whether it's a personnel issue or a scientific issue or a technological issue. So you become very innovative if you're in the company, and you can solve these problems and get a return. And that return can be financial, it can be psychological, emotional, whatever the case may be. And when you get that return, you have a significant level of gratitude. And gratitude is always the basis for long-term fulfillment. And by long-term fulfillment, I don't mean that you're going to be happy every single minute, every single day, but that when you look back over a week, a month, a year, you say, well, I like what I did with my life. I'm having fun. It's pretty good. And so that's the way to get to this personal fulfillment and generate this passion. And I've showed how in my life, in the book, how this formula works and how it works in the lives of others.
Well, you've undoubtedly been asked this before, and you've been tremendously successful following passion and obviously following a plan with the right balance, and that's what the book is all about. But I'm curious, as you look back, is there anything in particular that you either A, regret, or B, think, boy, if I would have tweaked this just a little bit, a couple things might have been different, and that's presupposing that you want things to be different?
Yeah, no, I'm generally happy with my life, and I should say more than general. I'm very happy with my life, and it's really hard to say. Are there anything in terms of my progression and what I've done? I wouldn't change any of that. I mean, I've had some tough times in my life. Losing my prior wife to breast cancer was not the easiest thing in the world, but now I have the pleasure of saying I've been married to two of the greatest women I've ever met in my life. So it ultimately had a positive outcome. There are things that I wish I would have done. Some of the coursework when I was in college, I wish I'd have taken a little bit more liberal arts than I did. I was heavy in math and science and physics, and so I've had to learn a lot of this stuff on my own. I wish I would have been a little bit more tolerant and patient with my first older daughters when they were growing up, but that was all part of the learning experience, and that's how I learned how to get into meditation and how to become more patient and all of this kind of thing. So no one's ever born with the things that I'm talking about, I don't think, right up front. You learn it along the way, and I guess that's why they call us old guys wise.
Yeah, that's true. Again, the work is Balance, the Business Life Connection. It's published by Select Books, the author James Cusamano, and it's an extraordinary work by an extraordinary guy who has lived a very full life and will continue to live a very full life and share some of the thought process behind all of it. Jim, how can people get a copy of the book? Again, you've got some other works as well.
You can buy the book at Amazon. It's even available as a Kindle ebook as well from Amazon. You can buy it from Barnes & Noble, all the major booksellers. But if you want to, you can go to the book website, and it has you can connect to all kinds of bookstores to buy it, and it's the website is www, and then the title of the book, Balance the Business Life Connection, all one word, balancethebusinesslifeconnection.com.
Wow, that's a mouthful, but it sounds like the one place to go to find out about it. Jim, thank you so much. What time is it, by the way, in the Czech Republic right now?
Well, I'm sitting in my office looking out over a beautiful sunset. It's 20 to 8.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your contributions, and we'd love to have you back on again.
Okay, Warner. Thank you, and you have a great day.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.